and welcome back to the Claret Blue podcast, sponsored by NordVPN. All the information you need for Nord, including what is it, John?
A tasty discount.
A tasty discount code are in the description down below. This is our big season preview that we do every year. This year we were joined by a special guest. Frankie Maguire joined us, who is a real person. I've only ever seen him online. Frankie, welcome. We're also joined by Mat Kendrick in a Villa shirt and squeaky-chaired John Townley. Matt, we'll start with you first of all, very quickly, just introductions. How are you? How's things?
Tongue-in-cheek, I was moaning about the positivity, everybody being super positive and super optimistic, and then all of a sudden with the Felix situation, with a couple of defeats in pre-season, everybody seems to be back in panic mode again. So I was only joking. We're allowed to be positive, so hopefully we'll get some positivity that runs through this preview with a bit of luck.
Yeah, I hope so. Frankie, special guest, your debut on the podcast in Podimore Heath in person. You well?
Yeah, it was a bit of an honour to be in the hallowed ground, sacred turf of Podimore Heath. And yeah, I am a real person. I'm not an AI, not as yet. So, no, delighted to be here and just to chat Villa, of course. And yeah, I'm a little bit like yours. I was feeling great about the Villa, and then it was a little bit down and then up again. So I'm sure that we'll talk about all that.
Yeah, we'll get through. We'll get all through that. John, we did a Q&A earlier in the week. We're over that kind of like pre-season moodiness, aren't we? I think we are excited for the season.
Yeah, definitely excited. I understand some kind of scepticism among the fangs, but we need to kind of see how we go at the start of the season, don't we? We play 3 games before the first international break. That's my judgment of where we are, really, which isn't great for a preview of that. But that will be a big bearing for me, really. How do we go against West Ham, Arsenal, Leicester? 3 very different tests. So, yeah.
We've got a few different talking points that we're going to get through, and then we've got our predictions that we do every year, top goal scorer, most assists, all those kind of things. I won't come to all of you for each of the points I've got because we'll be here forever. We'll start with you, Frankie. What's the kind of overriding feeling for you going into this season? Is it excitement? Is it trepidation? What is it?
One of intense excitement, in the sense I know we're going to have the Champions League theme playing at Villa Park. I mean, just can't not be super excited about that, knowing it is coming. And, think of all the best days of your lives, marriage, birth of your first child, Champions League theme at Villa Park's going to be up there.
Where up there?
Top. My fiancée will never watch this, hopefully. So, but no, I think obviously there's a little bit of trepidation in the sense, we've lost Doug Suisse, lost Moussa Diaby. I think particularly the Luiz one, it'll be interesting to see how Aston Villa, come to terms with that, how we adapt and adjust. And presumably there will be a bit of an adaptation process. Yeah. And you think back to this time last year, we lost 5-1 at Newcastle, and then 2 weeks later lost 3-0 at Liverpool. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't necessarily lose 5-1, but have 1 or 2 defeats early on. But it's just a case of just, we've got Unai Emery in charge, just take it easy, and it is just going to be an adaptation, I think, at the start. But there's so much quality in this team. I think we'll get our act together, at some point and kick on. So yeah I'm excited.
Yeah. We'll talk about the excitement of the Champions League in a little bit. For the league season, Matt, what are your thoughts going into that? Not a prediction for where they'll finish, because we'll get to that afterwards, but it's going to be a tough old season, isn't it, to do what we did again last year? Yeah,
just listening to what Frankie said about the marriage and kids. Those are great things, but they also a bit of a ball ache as well. To be honest. I feel that with Champions League. You know what I mean? To repeat what we did last season is going to be a massive ask, but ultimately it probably is the bread and butter, to be honest. So we've got to make sure we stay consistent. And the issue for me, and I know we've got 3 weeks left of the window, the issue for me is, are we equipped? Are we better equipped in terms of quality, in terms of depth than we were last season? I'm not convinced at the moment. I think the squad that we've got and the players that we've got, if you can get maximum out of them and the new players can get on board with Emery ball as quickly as the existing players, we've got a hell of a chance. But there's lots of variables that I need to see how they play out, really. I'm a little bit nervous, to be honest.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Are you nervous, John?
A little bit. I mean,
I don't know if nervous is the right word.
I don't know about nervous, but like I said, I don't know, maybe months ago, weeks even, we need to just enjoy next season, because last season, although we played so well, I do think there was a part of me, or maybe the fans will agree, that didn't quite enjoy it as much as I'd liked, because it was so like 3 points onto the next one. It kind of felt similar in a way to when we were trying to get promoted. Like I don't know, like it was very intense, very relentless, very stressful at the same time, even though we were going for Champions League and not trying to survive relegation. So I've told myself that next year I'm just going to enjoy it, and what will be will be.
How long will that last?
Yeah, exactly, like 20 minutes of the London Stadium. It's a very long season, and Villa may or may not be in the Champions League come March, but I just feel like, well, we might have a 3-month spell without European football anyway at the back end of the season. So for me, I think if we can just remain intact with the clubs that we should be competing with for Europe, then come the final 2 months of the season, we can just give it a crack. Because if we are in the Champions League at that point, then go for the Champions League, you're probably in the quarter-final. But if you're not, then you've got, 7 to 10 games to push on and get maximum points, hopefully. So, yeah, I'm very much looking forward to the season, but I am aware that the start could be... I don't want to say a slow start, but I don't think we'll win 9 out of 11 games like we did last season, put it that way. But I don't think we shouldn't be negative about that. We might not be in the top 4 come the first 10 games of the season. We might be 10th, but we might only be like 4 or 5 points away, which really isn't anything in the grand course of the season. So, I think you just need to kind of put context to everything next season.
Frankie, there's been a lot of summer business done from Villa, probably more than we expected at the back end of last season. How do you kind of assess what we've done so far? It's a risky one to ask you, do we need any more? Because as we film this and when this comes out, we might have done more. But just overall, how do you kind of assess what we've done?
Yeah, so I think if you go back to sort of February, January last season when Boubacar Kamara got that ACL injury, Villa's squad really did look quite light in midfield. It felt a little bit like... It just made the end of the season much more nerve-wracking, I think, and what could we get through it? And it's an amazing achievement that Villa did and got to the top 4. So I think what they've done this summer is obviously just added a bit more depth there. I think were there to be another, God forbid, but another bad injury, it does feel like we have a little bit more depth. And I think that, I think Luiz is a big loss, but I think in Onana we've probably added a player who has that physical profile that can help, clearing headers away, which has been a big problem for us. Yep. He adds a bit more physical bite in the centre, which we've kind of lacked at times. And I think that he's also a player who can eventually sort of potentially become a bit more of a progressive player than we've actually seen in his career. He's tended to play CDM, but there is actually an attacking player in there. As I'd imagine that maybe Unai Emery might, in a year's time, we might see a bit more of that from him. But I think he'll start the season as CDM most likely. I think Villagine, again, is another nice addition. Eiling Jr. coming in, Baranachea. So I think, generally, the squad depth is better. I don't know whether the first 11 is immediately better. Onana and Ian Matson, I feel like, do improve that first 11. But I still think there's 1 or 2 things I'd like to see. I can see why a player like Joao Felix is so much a target, because as a second striker, essentially, you want a player who can control that ball in tight situations and keep, do Emery ball, essentially, like Tielemans when he was a second striker playing with Luiz. They play off each other. So to have someone like that as a second striker coming in to replace Diaby would be great if it could happen. And then also just a little bit more physical bite maybe at the centre-back area. I just feel like that defence could do with a little bit extra. So I hope there's a couple more moves to come. But if they weren't, I think they will, but if they weren't, then I think the squad's deeper. I'm not sure the first 11's necessarily better.
And that's something we'll know with time. It might go on to be better, but right now it feels like a lesser 11 than it was that finished the season with our strongest 11 with Kamara fit and everybody like that. The squad depth is absolutely there, though, and I would be surprised anyway that come, is it September 1st or August 31st, the deadline is
30th, I think.
30th?
I think so.
Okay, right. A second striker will be signed and Diego Carlos's replacement will be signed, I think, and then I think that 11 then could go on to be better than what we had last year, but still lots of kind of getting used to the way that Emery wants them to play. Last year we discussed certain starters. Do you remember going through that, John, with James at Hockley?
Yeah.
So for these two, I'm going to let these two battle it out because we've kind of already done it and we will do it on a separate upload. If you were picking a team for a cup final tomorrow, and yes, I know it depends on the opponent who plays, who's a certain guaranteed starter in Unai Emery's 11? Come to you first, Matt.
What I've got a name.
Just give me someone who's definitely on that team sheet no matter
Martinez,
what.
obviously.
Yeah, so that's 1.
Konsa.
2.
Watkins.
3.
McGinn.
A certain starter, you think?
He's for me, yeah.
Okay.
Just pointing back to the fact about physicality and probably maybe a little bit of a lack of leadership in that squad. So McGinn's a certain starter. Based on what we've got now, I think based on form, Morgan Rogers, I'm not sure he'd make it into everybody's starting 11, but I've been so impressed with him.
Yeah, Sam.
I think
is that because he's a Hale's own lad?
If he was crap, we wouldn't claim him, would we? We'd say he was, Cradley Heath or something. But, so I'm just trying to think if I missed anybody obvious. Bailey, I suppose.
Torres is the one. That'd be one for me.
Yeah. I'm not going to join the Torres pile, and I think he definitely pile on even. He definitely has to be in there as well.
Is there anyone on that list you disagree with or think should be in there as a certain starter?
Do you know, not at all. I guess Onana, even though he's not really playing for us, I just think as a CDM role, Bobby Kamara being out, I'd say he just has to go in there immediately, and maybe in Maatsen as well. But again, I think it'll take a little bit of time for him to get into the team. I wouldn't say he'll necessarily be thrown in straight away, but pretty much agree with what Matt said, really.
Let's go through the opening month of the season then. West Ham away, Arsenal at home and Leicester away. That's 3 games in August compared to the 5 of August last year, which had the 2 Hibs games.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think to that start of the season? Difficult is what you're going to say.
Every game is difficult. I think it's a mixed bag because you've got a team that could win the league, a team that could finish in Europe, and a team that could be relegated.
Just looking at my notes.
And that's Aston Villa.
Trying to work out who was who then.
Yeah. I think it's a difficult start, and I'd take 4, not 3 points.
I don't ruin my next
right
question.
Now.
It's my next segment.
Sorry about that. I already have. Yeah. West Ham is a difficult game. We don't tend to win there. Arsenal is obviously a difficult match. And then Leicester. You feel like if we don't win one of those 2 matches against Arsenal or West Ham, then I wouldn't say there's pressure on the Leicester game, but you go into it thinking, well, we should win this game anyway. And also, if we don't, you go into an international break then. The games after that, I think Wolves and Everton at home are winnable. But yeah, you want to go into those matches on the back of something. So is a tricky start. West
Ham away is going to be really difficult just because you can't prepare for a Julian Lopetegui in the sense that we don't really know what he's going to do with his team. It's very hard. Whereas for him to prepare for Villa, it's a little bit easier because he knows what he's going to get from Unai Emery. And I've been following Aston Villa since the early 90s, and if you're a striker with a great big clunking head who scores headers like Fulkrug, you tend to score against Aston Villa. So I don't know. I think it's just going to be a tough away day. Not to say Villa can't get a result, but it's just going to be tough. And then Arsenal at home, I just wonder if that's come very early in the season. Again, we can do it. We showed we can do it last season. But I think those 2 as openers, that is quite tough. I think it could have been a bit easier than that. But then Leicester, I think you probably have to target that and say that's a game Villa should look at. I think we can go there and get 3 points for sure.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a tough opening, but that's what the Premier League is, isn't it, I guess? Yeah.
Do you think that West Ham game, Matt, has got John Duran winner written all over it for either side?
Probably not. I think it's probably going to be a 1-1 draw, to be honest. It's a really interesting one. John's already started to answer your next question, so I'll go for it as well. I think looking at 5 points, I think if we can from those first 3 games, I think it just gives us that little bit of, we'll be in and amongst it with 5 points after those games. And
is that drawing the first 2 and beating Leicester?
Well, you'd think that would probably be the most obvious way, but you never know with Villa, do you?
Yeah.
It could be beating. I mean, if we do get 5 points, it obviously means we've started the season.
I think that's a great start.
It's a brilliant start.
Which is a cracking start for the confidence of the fan base as much as anything. I don't know. Arsenal's really interesting. One, because he's obviously Unai's. There'll be some bit of revenge mission from Arteta. Whether he'll hire a team of people to perform aggravated assault rather than pickpocketing. I don't know, but I think it's going to be. It's a 5:30 kickoff, isn't it? The Arsenal game. So I think it's going to be a special night. Whether we can deliver what we did last time, I don't know. West Ham unpredictable. Leicester, I think we can go to Leicester and win. I think we can put down a kind of marker that. You've disappeared now, Leicester. You had a couple of years as the top dogs in the Midlands, but go put yourself back in your place now.
Yeah.
5 points, 3 games, please. Or 9 points, 3 games.
Well, yeah, obviously 5 points. You say 4 before.
Yeah.
4 points. How many points, Frankie? That first 3.
I'm going to go 4. Yeah.
I've gone for 4 as well. I think I'll be reasonably happy with 4, depending on where they come, I suppose. I did an audience poll on social media, and I didn't do it very well. I didn't give it enough thought because there wasn't enough poll options to have every points outcome. So I had like 0 to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 9. And somebody replied saying, well, if you think it's 6, you could pick either of the options. So it really skewed the vote.
That's bad.
But the average was 4 to 6 points.
You get that in GCSE maths.
I just threw it out quickly and didn't really think about it. So, yeah, 4 to 6 points is what the audience had as where we might get, which is the consensus of the room anyway, on my skewed Twitter poll. We've been asked a lot of questions in our Q&A about a slow start, and you mentioned it before, John. Do you feel like that could be the case with how pre-season's gone, players returning from the Euros, the amount of transfers that we've made? Does a slow start kind of feel like the easy thing to go, well, Villa might stumble a bit?
Yeah, and I don't think that's... I'm not going to be negative about it either, because the season is so long. If we have a quick start, then, you know...
You could have a slow end.
Yeah, things happen during the course of a season, as we saw last year, and I'm anticipating us not to win 5 games in a row at the start, and I don't think anyone should be. Like a slow start is okay, and lots of clubs do it. Lots of clubs also finish in the top 4 when they're not. You know, Tottenham the other year when they were behind Arsenal for all of the season, and then the last 2 games they did it. So it's going to be a different season to last season, I think. But yeah, I just think we need to stay confident and believe in what Emery's doing, because the players that we brought in so far, and with Frankie on it, I think that our 11 can improve. I just need to see a bit more. Obviously, Carlos going, a new defender coming in. Hopefully that happens. We'll be stronger in defence from that, and then going forward, let's see who Villa target instead of Felix, because he seems to be off to Chelsea at the time that we record. So yeah, I'm in a good place with it, really. I'm anticipating us not to win the first 3 matches, but I'm comfortable with it. It's a long season.
I wonder what the dynamic will be like if we do start badly, if we're 12th at Christmas. Because I don't feel like if that was...
That's a bit longer though than a start.
It is, but surely there's enough faith in the manager that we're not going to be going, oh, is it time for Emery to leave? Like, do you know what I mean? Whereas previous managers, if you're not quite sure, there is that kind of...
Got to the Emery out quick, didn't we?
Do you know what I mean, though? There's like little grumblings, little kind of seeds of doubt, whereas surely, even if we're having a terrible season, you still think, well, there's enough there that we can turn this around, we can still do good things.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think what Aston Villa have done under Unai Emery consistently is rise to challenges. You know, and, you know, like I say, and I mentioned earlier, at the beginning of last season, we had 2 big losses to Newcastle and Liverpool. And you did wonder, like, you know, has the Mings injury, can our defence cope? And the way Villa rose to that challenge was just remarkable.
Yeah.
And, you know, a couple of losses last season, like Tottenham 4-0 when, you know, we were in that Champions League run. And Villa came back with a whole bunch of really good results. And so I think even if Villa have a slower start, which, you know, could happen, just as we adjust to a whole new, dynamic within midfield particularly, it's not the end of the world at all, because I just think Unai Emery, he's been there, he's done it, and he'll find a way, basically. So, yeah, I think if it is a bit slower than it was last season, then keep the faith and just wait and see what Unai has planned.
And there's plenty of examples, Matt, of teams that start well and then fizzle out. Like Spurs had win the first 10 or something last year and finish below us in the end. So even if Villa started brilliantly, that's not a sign that you're going to consistently do that either. If anything, you don't want like a brilliant start or a terrible start. You just want a consistent start all the way through.
We seem to have it in our minds that Villa are going to start slowly.
Do you not think that will happen?
Well, it could happen, but it could not happen. To be honest,
that's a preview for you.
We know for definite. I'm on an R in. There's so many bloody variables. The thing for me is that, and we've kind of anointed Emery as a saviour so many times, and we've talked about how we've got the best owners and the best director of football in the business. They don't seem panicky.
No.
I know we're not a fly on the wall in their meetings at actual Bodymore Heath, which is, you know, not the same as Podymore Heath, is it? But they don't seem panicky. So they've known what they're doing with their business because they've done a lot of it. And I know a lot of it was kind of ahead of the PSR kind of FFP, those manoeuvrings. So they're confident with what we've got going forward, and they know they've got a couple more weeks of movement potentially. So if they're confident, I think we should share that. And it's not blind faith. It's based on the fact that they've delivered very quickly, very efficiently, very effectively for the last 18 months. So I don't think we should expect a slow start. But if it does come, I think we can cope with it. And like Frankie said, the good thing is, I don't want to jinx it or tempt fate here. So, is this wood?
It's as good as we've got.
Yeah. So I think the thing is that whenever we've had a setback, we've responded fairly quickly. I don't remember a long losing run. Have we lost 2 games on the spin?
I think we lost 2, but we never lost more than 2. Is that right?
We lost
in the league.
Well, we lost 3 in a row this season, his first season, but that's a long time ago. Last season we didn't lose 3 in a row.
Yeah.
He tends to be, like you say, he tends to find answers. He tends to find solutions quite quickly.
So if we lost to West Ham and Arsenal, we'd beat Leicester.
If we lost to West Ham and Arsenal, we'd beat Leicester and the next 3 games. I just think, you know what I mean? The good thing is, although you might not have believed it with a little bit of a social media meltdown in recent days, we don't do crises at the moment. It tends to be.
Yeah, the club doesn't. The fan base does.
Well, that's a fan base's prerogative, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we have got a manager and a first team setup, if you like, that don't do crises. So, you know, that gives me plenty of
I
encouragement.
just feel like if we weren't to beat West Ham or Arsenal, we'll probably do a podcast after that saying, everyone calm down, because we have
I'm sure everyone will love
Leicester, Wolves.
Yeah, so just be warned now. If that happens, you're going to get told off.
I just think it's a bit. I don't want to raise our expectations so much that if we don't win one of our first 2 games, all of a sudden we're kind of scrambling around thinking, "Oh, we've got to beat Leicester now. Why haven't we signed this player?"
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Just it's a long season. After that, we have Leicester, Everton, Wolves. I think we've got Bournemouth after that at some point at home as well. Like we played one of the last season's top 7 in our first 8 games or something, which is
Man United,
Arsenal.
isn't it? Oh, right.
United finished 8th, so we've got a nice run there. Like we're going to build and we're going to get better as the season goes on. I think if we have a good start, then great. I don't think we'll have a bad end because, as we said earlier, we have enough depth now to kind of cope with injuries if they happen. So I'm completely satisfied with where we are. I just think that if we don't win in the first 2, I don't want everyone to kind of have a little mini meltdown and thinking that, oh, all of a sudden we're already 6 points behind this team or we're 4 points behind them. Just kind of
Right, everyone remember this
calm
clip,
down.
this version of John Townley, where if that does
if it
happen, I
happens,
can come
I
back
can
and use
see
it.
it happening. And again, Matt says we could beat West Ham and get something against Arsenal when it's all rosy. That's fine, but yeah, I just know that that's the message that Emery's going to be saying if we don't win one of our first 2.
He'll be storming out of Leicester, smashing his laptop.
Frankie, I'm going to come to just you for this one. I was going to ask you, what's one thing that we did last year that we need to be better at this year?
The podcast. Get Frankie on board.
The obvious answer is surely just we can't concede as many goals as we did last year.
100% that. I think we conceded 61 goals last season in the Premier League. I think we were 8th best defence in the league. I think if you think of Arsenal, they conceded 29.
Yeah.
City, low 30s. Liverpool, I think, were 41. Why do I know this?
I don't know. I was just going to say,
Why can't I remember like really good things like mortgage advice? And then when it comes to stats on defences from last season, but so I looked at all that, and I mean, there's 2 results that slightly skewed it a bit with Villa. You know, the 5-0 to Crystal Palace and that 5-1 on the first day of the season. So it probably tells a slightly different story than what it was. But ultimately, we can't concede as many goals as we did, and we have to stop conceding goals from set pieces. Corners. We just look a little bit chaotic at times, particularly from about January onwards last season. It just felt every time there was a set piece against us, you were a bit like, oh, how are we going to cope with this? So hopefully the addition of Onana helps there. I would like another defender who can help in that sense, and maybe Mings coming back. Hopefully we all love Mings and want to see him back, don't we? Him coming back might help in that regard as well. But yeah, I mean, certainly just get a bit better at defending those set pieces and just aim to concede far fewer goals than we did last season.
On to the Champions League then, John. So good to be talking about it, isn't it? Do you start to pinch yourself at Aston Villa, Champions League club?
I do.
Is it settled in yet?
Yep, that was my first line of the print supplement that we've done.
I read it, that's why I...
there we go then. Fantastic. You can get yours for £3.50, I think, Matt, on the online stuff.
Available on the online shop. Postage and package does apply.
Should we put a link in the description?
Put a link in the description.
Okay.
Well done, John. Very much on message there. Well done.
Good work, team.
Just buzzing for it. I mean, everyone obviously looking towards the Champions League music being played at Villa Park. maybe it's a bit selfish, but I'm looking forward to going to hopefully the Bernabeu or Allianz. Or we play 8 games, right? So 4 at home, 4 away. That's more than obviously Newcastle played and has been previously played before. So we're going to get a really good sample of it, whatever happens, even if we don't perform to the levels that we hope that we can, and then we know that we can. But I don't think that will be an issue. I think that we'll be playing at least one knockout tie. Obviously that's home and away as well, so yeah, we'll see where we finish. We did the little kind of the group draw, the fake group draw, and it is going to be difficult to get in the automatic. I think it's the top 9, is it? I think top 8 maybe, which 8. Is basically going to be, you'd have thought, pot 1 plus one other. So the likelihood is that we're going to be playing a knockout game unless we finish in the bottom 8, which again you'd hope isn't going to be the case. But I was looking at the amount of clubs that are in it and who is going to be in it, and I don't want to kind of play this game so early, but there's a lot of winnable games there as well, though. Like, genuinely, there are.
Is this you plotting your route to the final?
Yeah, we're the team who you don't want to play in.
If you're one of the kind of the lesser clubs, you'd be looking at Villa as that'll be difficult.
Yeah, that's the one you want to avoid, or one of the 2 that you want to avoid, because you don't want to go to Villa Park. I think any team playing at home in the Champions League will back themselves, because you need good form to finish that high in your league. So any away game is going to be difficult. That's my only concern. We only won 1 game away from home in Europe last year, didn't we? We lost to Legia, drew to Ajax, drew to Zrinski, lost to Lille, and we beat AZ Alkmaar comfortably, but we didn't perform very well away from home, which is a bit of a concern. But yeah, as long as we have the kind of the crowd behind us at Villa Park on a Champions League night, I think there's a great chance that we can win probably 3 of the 4, maybe 4 out of 4.
When you say we'll have at least 1 knockout game, are you thinking of the knockout game to get you through to the next bit, or the actual first knockout stage?
The knockout playoff before the round of 16.
Yeah.
I think that we'll at least have that, and if we can get through that, then obviously round of 16, which would be fantastic.
So we had a taste of Villa in Europe last year with the Conference League. Matt, this is your first taste of Villa in the top tier of European football, like all of us. You don't remember the European Cup. We weren't born.
I'm probably old enough, I just don't remember it.
Obviously, you've spoken a lot about your European experiences as John's role back in the day. How excited are you for this Champions League campaign as a fan now? You're not doing the reporter's role. You get to go and experience this possibly away as well as a fan.
I'm very excited. I'm just thinking, if anybody was plotting the positivity and negativity graph on this podcast, it's like a bloody roller coaster, isn't it? Because 1 minute we don't know whether we're going to get a point before Christmas in the Premier League. The next minute we think, well, yeah, the draw's opening up, you know. It's not been made yet, but it's opening up. We can plot a path.
That's Villa, though, isn't it? Very up and down. That's what we're used to.
Yeah, I'm buzzing about it. It just feels long overdue, but it feels like providing we get our business done before the end of August. It feels like we're either ready or we're getting ready. I think as a fan base, we're ready because we've craved it for so long. It's when that draw's made, you need to find a way between getting the big nights, the A-listers to Villa Park, and some big away trips, but also peppered in with a couple of the kind of no-marks as well. So it's where's the tipping point? We want to have fun, but we want to win these bloody things. So obviously the sweet spot is you get the big boys down to Villa Park and you beat them. But just really, really excited about venturing into the unknown. And I had a little taste. It was albeit pre-season friendly at Dortmund at the weekend, and you thought, actually, this is what it feels like to be kind of mixing it with the big boys, really. So I'm just as much as people get excited by transfer deadline day, or modern day football fans get excited by transfer deadline day, it's just the Champions League draw that I'm buzzing for, really, just to see.
I'm excited to see how they do it, because there's always talk about it being automated. Right? There is still some kind of element of bringing a ball out.
AI Frankie's doing it.
Believe it or not, Villa have got an easy draw.
Is it like they twist the balls off like Aston Villa?
So what they'll be doing is they're going to go from the first team, I believe anyway, from reading it, I think, the first team in pot 1 and on and on and on. But I think it's going to be like the first team in pot 1, here are their games.
Right.
I think.
So you could feature in that, but you don't.
So I don't know.
Until
maybe link the website, but I believe it will be like Real Madrid and then here are their games.
Right,
I think
okay.
so. By the time they get to us, I think we'll know most of our games. I think.
Yeah.
That is. Yeah.
Still very excited to
Should've
watch along
probably
with that, though. We'll do a podcast.
There is an
around that.
entertainment value with it, though.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
not just going to throw
Press the
them.
button and go, here they are, here's every game.
Yeah, there's something to watch. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll do a podcast around that, I think. Right, that's enough excitement. Frankie, will we drop off in the league because of our Champions League campaign?
I thought you were joking.
We're having a slow start.
No, it's up
But
and
we're
down.
consistently slow. Win the Champions League and we get relegated. Has it been done before?
It's up and down, this podcast. But that is the thing, isn't it? We said it for the Conference League last year.
Yeah.
Like, if we're going to go all the way in that, will our league form suffer? No, it didn't. We did very well in the league. But Champions League is obviously a step above that. Whether it's just the 8 games or any more, do you see that as being at the expense of league position?
You have to think it's going to have some impact in some way, particularly if you're playing like a Real Madrid on a Wednesday night and then away at wherever on the Saturday. I mean, that is going to be a new challenge for Villa to face up to, and something that we're just going to have to adapt to and hopefully get used to in the coming years. But I think as well, like with the squad depth, if 1 or 2 players can kind of adapt quickly, like let's say like a Baranachea turns out to be a really good CDM, and you could start Onana on the Champions League game and then maybe Baranachea in the Premier League game. So if those if that works nicely, then hopefully we've got the squad depth to actually deal probably a little bit better than we did in the tail end of last season with the Conference League, where the squad started to look a little bit light. So if I was to predict it, I'd say yes, it probably will have a bit of an impact. But at the same time, I'm hopeful that with the squad depth we have, we might actually be able to cope a bit better than, say, what Newcastle did last season.
Yeah.
And they really struggled, but they also had an injury crisis as well. So, yeah.
Do you think, Matt, that maybe what we can take from what Newcastle didn't have is that they went from nothing to the Champions League, whereas we've gone Conference League first and got that experience of playing midweek and then playing out the weekend?
I think it will help. Obviously, the Conference League was, with respect to the opposition, was a competition where you could put lesser players in. I know Emery used a bit of rotation in the competition. I think the Champions League, it's a really difficult dilemma, isn't it? Because we said at the top of the podcast that I think the league position maintaining that top 4 is probably the key to longer term sustainability at the top table.
Yeah.
But what do you prioritise? Do you put a weakened squad out for the Premier League because you've got a big Champions League game coming up, or vice versa? I think that's difficult. I think it's a really close call over which one, which then you think, well, do you lean towards putting your best 11 in both? And then you get the kind of Martin O'Neill March fatigue problem, don't you? So I think it's a really interesting puzzle for Emery to solve. But again, him being over the course and distance in Europe several times gives us the advantage that we've not got a rookie in charge who's guessing as he goes along. Yeah.
One final talking point before we get into our predictions, and it kind of is a prediction in a sense. We round off every season preview that we've done. How many have we done of these? Like, is this our 4th one or something?
Yeah, it must be 4 or 5, yeah.
We've always ended with the same question. What is your definition of success for Villa this season? We'll start with you first, John.
Staying in European football.
Yeah.
Exactly that, continuation of European football.
Same for you? Your FA Cup?
We haven't said that yet.
FA Cup and not getting relegated. I think we need to finish in the top 4 again. We need to finish in the Champions League again.
So success for you is top 4, and
I think we've raised the bar. That so I'm not saying it would be failure if we didn't, but I think that we've announced our arrival now, and we've got to make sure that we're in amongst it again. So yeah, big ask.
I think I'd say Europa League as a minimum, rather than Conference League. I would obviously take it because I think you'd have a good chance of winning it.
That's why I said European football, because if we get Conference League, I'm not going to say that's a bad season. I think if we fall out of European football, there'll be reasons why. Because I just think we are the 4th best team in England since Emery took over. It's not just last season. It's just all the games, everything involved, all the points. We are the 4th best team, and it would take something quite significant for us to drop off, I think, out of European football, which means an injury, or I don't know exactly. We'll find out if we do. But that's why I say European football in any form. I'll take it, I think.
Okay. I think it's splitting hairs and it's semantics, but I think there's a difference between what constitutes failure and what's the definition of success. And I think there's 2 or 3 places in the league in between that. So I think it would be a failure if we don't get European football, but for it to be qualified, for it to class as success, I think we need to finish top 4. So give myself a little bit of wiggle room there, I think.
Emery said this target is top 10, and then it's Europe, and then it's Champions League. So he didn't quite, but to kind of go with Matt's point, that is the goal, though. The players will see 4th as the goal again. That in their heads, because they're professionals, they'll be thinking, if we don't finish 4th, we've underperformed from last season. When there'll be different reasons why we don't finish 4th if that is the case. But that will be the goal. And it will be, as Emery said, it's finishing the top 10, European football. Then the Champions League, you can only get that in the final weeks of the season. Because as we saw last season, we got it on just before the final day in the end, but it looked like it was going to the final day. Getting Champions League before the last 2 weeks of the season ends, that would be pretty remarkable. So
could be 5th this year. Coefficient FC's back again.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Let's move on to our predictions now. If you want to get out your phones or your bits of paper or your notepads, whatever you've got, I've sent all of you a list, a template to fill in of different categories, and we're all going to give our predictions that we can come back to and look at the end of the season to see who got the most right and the most wrong. We're going to go through these, hopefully in the order that I sent them to you, but I'll read them out anyway. We'll all go one at a time and then discuss any interesting takes.
It's going to be a kind of one-worder, and then you'll follow up as the host with the most if you need.
If I'm in the mood for that, yeah. We'll start with Aston Villa's top goal scorer. We'll start every time from Matt to Frankie to John to me, so we keep a nice flow.
This will be quick.
Pressure on me, though, isn't it?
Shall I start then? And go the other way?
I don't mind.
Ollie Watkins.
Ollie Watkins.
Ollie Watkins.
Ollie Watkins.
Okay, I've gone. Did anyone pick a goal number? Because I did. I did 20. I think he'll finally get that 20 mark.
Yeah.
At long last.
Gonna
20
say
Premier
21.
League goals. 21.
21, yeah.
22.
19.
Get out.
Was there any debate amongst any of you about picking somebody different? Because last year I went
Not
to
anybody different.
well, I went to Derby last year, knowing that you would all pick Watkins. I picked Derby just to be different. Right. But this year I thought I'm going to stick with Watkins and go with what I actually think. If we're all going 20, I can't see anyone else getting near that to compete for Watkins. If someone like Bailey gets it, I think
Bailey.
It's like they've both got like 14 or 15 or something.
Yeah, again, the window hasn't ended, but Bailey and Rodgers would be second and third, I would have thought. But I can't see Rodgers getting, or Bailey getting above 15.
Yeah. And do you think Watkins will get that kind of figure?
Yeah.
We need everything to be shining down on Watkins as well.
Yeah.
He's got to get that figure. I think he's got to be playing.
Yeah.
Pretty much starting every week again.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed that's the case.
It felt like he scored every week almost until the last 5 games of the season when it was a thing of like, okay, you're one away now.
Yeah.
So I hope that isn't a thing next season, and I hope it wasn't a thing at all, and maybe there was other reasons why he didn't score in the last games, but it was a real disappointment that he didn't in the end.
Yeah. Okay, most assists next. I think that's a really difficult thing to predict because it's so random. I don't know why it's different to goals, but I went Leon Bailey with 11. Again, don't really know why. He's a creative player. It's one of those things. John, who have you gone for?
I went with Ollie Watkins.
Watkins again? Okay.
Yeah, because he got the most last season.
Oh, yeah.
Although it's, I shot myself then because I didn't even think. But makes sense why I've done it really. Most in the league last season.
He's just copied and pasted Ollie Watkins.
Did you
most clean sheets, Ollie Watkins.
Did you pick a number?
No, I didn't.
Can you pick a number now? Just for
double digits again, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it was weird because he isn't previously in his career he hasn't had that many assists, but then there's clearly a reason why all of a sudden he got the most in the league.
Yeah.
Like it was pretty remarkable how he did that.
What's the award for that again? Do we work out?
Playmaker
award.
Yeah.
We wanted the silver boot, didn't we, or something?
Ollie Watkins, the playmaker.
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely a reason why he got that many assists. So go with that again.
Okay, so that's talking 30 goal contributions at least from Watkins then for you. 19 goals and at least 11 assists.
Did it last season, didn't he?
Yeah. Okay. Frankie?
Yeah, first I just want to mention I love how high tech you all are with your phones and iPads. I've got I'm old school like Mike Bassett, England manager. I write my team on the back of a cigarette packet.
That's the best way sometimes.
I went Leon Bailey again. I'll say 12.
Leon Bailey as well for me. Yeah, we'll go for 10.
10. All right. A little bit of differentiation in the amount of assists, but all Bailey. Player of the year. Shall I go first again? I did say I was going to, but I feel like I bottled it a little bit. Morgan Rogers, Player of the Year.
Ooh.
I said in a video that we did about him specifically a couple of weeks ago that he was like my dark horse for Player of the Year, but now I've just gone straight up. He will be Player of the Year. if Watkins gets 20 goals, there's obviously going to be a great shout for it to be him. But I just think Rodgers will prove to be really important for us by the end of the season, like starting every week, contributing goals and assists.
I went with. Sorry, do you want me to talk about Rodgers?
No.
I went with Emi Martinez
Okay, why?
because he's the best keeper in the world. That's an easy answer. I don't know. There's so many moments last season and even the season before where he just bails us out, and I don't like talking about it too much because it feels like I'm either being a bit like negative about like, oh, Villa are conceding lots of chances, or Villa wouldn't be here if Martinez wasn't in goal. But seriously, like in most games, he makes a top save that I struggle to believe that many of the keepers in the Premier League would make.
You almost don't realise how good they are because he does them so frequently.
Exactly. And I can picture something happening at Villa Park against Arsenal maybe, and he makes a top save and we're like, oh, great save by Martinez. And then you just forget it happens even then. Like the Man City game when he saved, he made a great save and then Haaland heads up. The Arsenal game where he makes a save from Trossard, I think it was. I don't think we win either of those games. Well, City game we did batter them. But then the game state changes, doesn't it? Like if you go one down to either of those teams, it's a completely different game.
The crowd changes and everything.
Yeah, Everton away makes a great save against Calvert-Lewin. Like I could go in every game and mention it. Even like Zerinski in the Conference League was a great save. Like every match that I can recall, he did something, and playing out from the back is obviously key. He's a leader. In those Champions League games, it'll be absolutely crucial. I presume we're going to win a penalty shootout at some point in the Champions League because Martinez is there. Like you have so much confidence and belief. If Watkins gets 20 goals, he'll probably win Player of the Year, to be honest. But I just think Martinez will always have a 9 out of 10 season.
Yeah, I've gone with Morgan Rogers as well.
Nice vindication.
Just think that the way watching it in front of our eyes, his improvement from when he moved in January, kind of a bit unheralded. Few Middlesbrough fans themselves said they weren't sure what Villa had seen, and just watching it in person and seeing his improvement was just absolutely remarkable. And the 3 goals he scored, amazing. 2 from the edge of the area, 1 kind of closer to the goal. And then in pre-season, he's been playing in that front 2. So I wonder, my own theory on Rodgers might be that eventually he becomes the heir to Ollie Watkins. He might even end up as a striker. And I think against Athletic club last week in the friendly, where he played up front, there were things he was doing where you thought he does look like a natural there. I know it's only pre-season, but his intelligence and just the way he moves and his layoffs and everything, and his finishing with that disallowed goal as well he got where he chipped the keeper. My word, I nearly wrote love poetry to it. It was so amazing. On the back of it, I wrote HD, isn't it? You see it? I think Rodgers, I'm very excited to see how he develops this season,
me too.
And potentially in a new role as well.
Yeah. Matt? If you said Rodgers, we could just move on because I think we covered him enough.
We said Martinez was
yours as well?
Okay. For all the reasons that John outlined.
One to watch next. I've gone for Buendia, which just feels a little bit.
Interesting though, because
feels a bit of a cop out just because he wasn't there at all last season. So now he's available. He's a bit of an unknown. Is why I've picked him. I've not picked him in the sense of like he's going to play 30 games and score loads of goals. But I think again, not to the same extent as Rodgers. But I think as of now, I think we'd all be saying that Buendia is probably not going to be that important. Whereas I think by the end of the season, he could be one that we go.
He played a role.
He was pretty good. Like he contributed like in important moments. So. Yeah, Buendia's my pick.
That is interesting because people aren't really talking about him, which is.
I saw someone on Twitter saying he needs a loan for game time. Like, he'll play for us.
Yeah.
He was the best player we had in pre-season last summer, again, pre-season, and then he got his injury, so we'll see how he goes, and I think he is one to watch, so you are right. Yeah. I went with Jadon Philogene because he was outstanding at Hull last season. I was really pleased that we got him back, and I think he's going to play as well, not obviously in the Premier League as much as Bailey, but the cups that we're going to be playing in the Champions League, I'm sure he'll get his moments. I said previously as well, he's a player that can be what Bailey was at the start of last season in terms of finishing matches and having that ability to come into games. And I know a lot of people kind of laughed when I said that whatever the stat was that I pulled out, but that's kind of what we saw against Bilbao. He runs with the ball and then shoots at the end of it. Like he's got end product. He scores goals and makes assists. He's not a player who runs and then does a skill like Anthony and then falls over. He's got something about him, and I think he can definitely impact matches. So I wouldn't be surprised if he got at least 5 to 10 goals next season, which doesn't sound like a lot, but they all contribute. Coming off the bench, I think he'll be able to influence games.
Yeah, I actually had Morgan Rogers written down, but I realise I've already sort of written a love story to it. So I think maybe it'd be interesting to see Jacob Ramsey just coming back from that injury. And I think that leading up to his injury in that second half, in that first season of Unai Emery, his performances were absolutely superb, down that left-hand side. And he looked like a player who was almost destined to play for England very soon.
Yeah.
And it's such a shame he got that injury when he did, because it just really has impacted him in the last year. But hopefully, if he's clear past that now, it'd be really interesting to see if he can get back to that level. I think he probably can.
You almost kind of forget how good he actually is because we've not seen him for so long.
And seeing him back in the first team again regularly would just be magical. And he's one of our own. And it looks like he's slightly bulked up a bit. I saw him in pre-season. I thought, oh, he's been on the been down the gym somewhere I've not been in many years. So yeah,
I hear you, brother.
Matt, you're one to watch.
I've put Onana.
Okay.
The reason being is he's not signed as a direct replacement for Douglas Luiz, but I think that's kind of the headspace. Midfielder gone out, midfielder come in. And I've got a bit of a Tielemans vibe from Everton fans. I felt a lot of Leicester fans kind of laid down the poison for Tielemans, saying, he's had it, he's not good enough, he's lazy, he's this, he's that. Yeah. And it was... I think that was their coping mechanism for knowing that we got one of their best players, and I get the sense of that with Onana as well. And I'm really interested to see, I think because of the guy's physical nature, is that what he's got? He can come and help us in the middle of the park, kind of win the ball. He can help us defend our line from set pieces and that kind of thing. But I think there's a little bit more to him than that as well. I'm not going to kind of suddenly say we've got the new Patrick Vieira in our midst, but I think it's really interesting to see what Emery can do for him and do for his game, and how that fits into our system. So he's definitely going to be one to monitor closely. I think he's going to, at least until Kamara's back and ready, I think that's his role pretty much nailed down as well. I think.
Yeah,
I think it's really encouraging that we have like lots of different answers, and we can say other players as well. Whereas in previous seasons it was one or two players, they could be exciting, but you don't really know. But this season, so much there that a lot of players to say we haven't spoken about, so it is really exciting.
Let's rattle through these next ones then. Villa's league finish. I've gone 5th, but that be a Champions League place.
Nice.
John?
I have exactly the same,
5th as well.
And with the coefficient, we must
Let's
say...
be quick with the coefficient.
But I've said this previously, but teams now don't go down in the different competitions, so you'd hope that Chelsea can win the Conference League, well, for the coefficient anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Tottenham and Man United have both got a decent chance, maybe. And then we're in the Champions League, so you never know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm hopeful. And if that is the case, then I think 8th goes Conference League, so better chance of European football.
Okay. Frankie?
Yeah, I was chairman of Coefficient FC last year and then handed in my resignation. Now I'm back in charge because I've predicted 5th for Villa as well. So yeah, I predicted a little bit lower than that in these early pre-season things I did a couple of months ago, and got a lot of few people saying I was a bit too negative. So I was like, no, I'm going to avoid that this time. But no, I think Villa can get 5th and maybe even higher than that. But yeah, go 5th.
Yeah, it's a 5th from me too.
I was very tempted by 3rd. I will just put that out there.
A lot of outsiders have said 3rd.
Yeah, I don't know why. I'm going to go with 5th. FA Cup, I've gone 5th round, which I don't really know what that is. 3rd round, 4th, 5th, a couple of games, but yeah, uninspiring.
FA Cup.
Yeah.
I went semi-final.
Bloody hell, okay, all right.
Yeah, we've got depth now. I feel like we have 2 11s. The second 11 could beat most teams.
Okay, yeah.
So, semi-final.
Especially most other teams' second teams as well.
Exactly. I know there's a bit of a snobbery about the cups and stuff, but we have, as I said, Philogene, and you have Luca Dean left. There's a lot of every position now as a second player, so hopefully if we don't have injuries, we can go far.
Okay. Frankie, FA Cup?
Yeah, it just depends if we can beat Man United away in the 3rd round. So, no, I've gone quarter-final.
Okay.
I've gone 3rd round because I don't think we can beat Man United.
Good. I thought you were going to go winner. You've let me down there.
No, they've battered me down there.
League Cup, I've gone quarter-final for that one. I think we said last year, it feels like we've got a better chance in the League Cup than we do the FA Cup. Don't know why.
I think that's changed this year.
Do you think?
Yeah, just because of the amount of games we're going to play condensed at the start of the Champions League. 8 games before the end of January is quite a lot, so I just said...
Whereas the FA Cup 3rd round doesn't start till around January.
Exactly, so I think we could juggle that better. But yeah, round of 16 I said for League Cup.
Okay. Frankie?
I've said straight out. I think just the Champions League games and everything, I just wonder if we've got if it's just a little bit too much.
I never thought about the Champions League.
I can't see the
structure.
League Cup being anywhere near our priority, to be honest.
Yeah.
What quarter final?
Quarter-final, all right, snap. Champions League is the one we all want. I've gone round of 16 exit. So we'll get through the group phase, I think, via the knockout round.
Mm-hmm.
We'll beat our knockout game, and then we'll lose the following knockout game.
I say the same thing.
The same one.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I see it going, having that middling section, having to play somebody, then getting through and then going out.
Yeah, I'm going to say round of 16. Maybe a big win that we all remember in the opening rounds, maybe a tonking as well. That Jude Bellingham narrative is right there, the hashtag narrative.
Stop.
You know, his Real Madrid teammates wondering why he's so excited about playing this team in Birmingham. But I think we can get to round 16. I think we've got a manager who's been there, done it, got Villarreal to a semi-final not too long ago, won the Europa League with them. So why not? Why not?
Colin Albert said winners to you, Matt, a few weeks ago. Are you going the same?
No, I'm excited about the prospect of Jude Bellingham coming to Villa Park with Real Madrid. That's like a number 9 derby, isn't it? We've got Morgan Rogers.
Yeah.
Morgan Rogers, Hal Owen versus Stourbridge's Jude Bellingham.
That'll be the big talking point. That one.
I can't remember what I put. I put round of 16 as well.
Okay, we're all going the same for that then. Some wider Premier League predictions. A rogue relegation shout. So me and John are going to do a separate video of our Premier League 1 to 20. I think most people will look at the Premier League and think there's a few obvious teams to go down. So I wanted a rogue shout. I've gone really rogue. I've gone Brighton.
Yeah.
Who have been obviously well known as being a little bit of a gem and everyone's kind of second claw, one of these kind of media darlings, but I feel like time might be running out for them. Not that this isn't that they're actually going to go down, but they'll be in trouble and around that kind of bottom 5, bottom 6.
I took it as relegation, so that's why I didn't say Brighton.
Oh, would you have said Brighton as well?
Well, I think it's difficult because I don't think there are. I think the 3 teams are going to really struggle, and I think there's a lot of quality in the league. So I just said Everton, and I know that doesn't sound very wrong,
Okay, yeah.
but that's because I don't think they'll go down, but they might if they play bad.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I said Everton, but I think it's a difficult question.
Frankie?
Yeah, I've gone Brentford. I don't think they will, but there's just sometimes teams just feel like for a couple of years they're losing a bit of momentum, and then they go. And I feel like Brentford might be in that spell at the moment. Maybe not this year, but it could be coming. And it just depends. Can Ivan Toney start scoring goals again? Because he didn't really get back to great form. So potentially them.
Matt?
Manchester, no. I've gone Wolves.
Ooh.
Okay, yeah. I can see
I
it.
think it could go either way. Not either way with Wolves competing for top 6, but I think they're either just going to find the rhythm and be comfortably top 10, or it's just going to sink. They're going to find themselves in trouble.
Okay.
It's a strange one, Wolves. They've played some really good stuff in pre-season, but then didn't play well against Vallecano, and then Gary Neal started shouting in his media conference. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's a weird one.
Next up is top 6 dark horse. So somebody that you think has a chance, an outside chance. Again, I'm not saying they will finish in the top 6, but they've got a chance of competing for it. I've gone Fulham.
Yeah, I like that.
I think they're building a decent squad there, and I think won't be any kind of doubts of relegation for there. They'll probably finish around mid-table, but I don't think they'll be a million miles away from putting a run together for top 6 or top 7 maybe.
Mine isn't too rogue, but I just think top 6 is like a massive ask. So I just said West Ham.
I felt like West
Not
Ham was
too
the obvious
rogue,
choice. Yeah,
Top 6 is like, if they finish top 6, that's an incredible season
Yeah.
still. So yeah.
Yeah, I said West Ham as well.
West Ham.
Just top manager and some really good players. So yeah, they potentially.
yeah.
Ditto.
Ditto as well. West Ham as well. Okay. First manager sacking in the Premier League. I've gone Ten Hag, who I actually think will be sacked at some point during the season. Whether he'd actually be the first, I don't know. That's probably wishful thinking for me. That I want Man United to absolutely tank it.
I want him to stay there for as long as it takes.
But you can see Van Nistelrooy being manager by the end of the season, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I went Nuno.
Yeah,
Forest,
I
yeah.
can see that as well. Frankie?
I think when we lose to Leicester, I think Unai Emery's in real trouble, isn't he? So he'll be out the door. I went Nuno as well at Forest. It just feels like they're not in great shape at the moment.
I was trying to look at the clubs and thinking like who's like I thought Steve Cooper, but if Leicester are like expecting not to do very well anyway, like would they sack him? I'm not so sure. So yeah, Nuno's probably a decent shout, or Dyche maybe even. Matt?
Yeah, I've gone Nuno just in terms of I think they're going to struggle. Plus, you've got to factor in their owner's previous behaviour.
Yeah.
So,
Finally, on this little section, Golden Boot winner across the Premier League. I've gone Watkins.
nice.
Why not?
I wanted to ignore Haaland, so I said Isak.
Isak, okay, nice.
It's two really good shots, actually. I went very conservative with Erling Haaland.
Yeah.
He's
It's the obvious answer, isn't it?
just going to be the Terminator.
I can already tell from the look Matt is giving me. He's also said Haaland.
Well, listen, when you're talking about kind of prolific goal scorers, you can't ignore the tapping of going for Erling Haaland, can you? There you go.
Finally, then, this is for Frankie and Matt only, because John and I are going to do a separate video, as we've mentioned. I just want you to run through with names your top 6 and then your bottom 3. So, Frankie, I'll let you go first. Your top 6, please.
I'm going to say Arsenal win the league. I'm going to say they do it. City's won, obviously, many years in a row. They've got Rodri, who could be the best player in the world, to be honest. But I just think Arsenal, they've been knocking on the door. It feels like they've worked out how to play in the Premier League. And I think maybe 1 or 2 results that didn't go their way in December last year, they might have the experience now to get through that. So I think they're finally going to do it. And then City second, annoyingly Chelsea.
Oh, okay.
I know. Yeah, this could go either way with Chelsea. It could be bottom 3 in November or top. And I mean, all of us. I feel like, are we all Chelsea players? Have we all signed for Chelsea? Has Fabrizio Romano given it the here we go? Dan Rolinson.
I'll certainly be in the bottom 3 if I'm playing for him.
Because they have so many players. So
I'd probably be dressed a lot better and probably slightly better.
Do some key gives with the ball as well.
But yeah, I've gone with them getting there. Spurs are another one. I'm not sure about Ange's defensive approach, but I'm going to say 4th for them, and then Villa 5th, and then Liverpool 6th. But again, like, there's so many teams there where you think, I don't actually know what to expect from a lot of these teams.
Agreed.
Whereas actually Villa, you maybe do a little bit. You do know what is coming from them more so than a few others.
So there's that stability there with the manager and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Your top 6, Matt?
You only asked me for a top 4, but
Did I?
the professional that I am, I'm sure I can.
Villa's 5th.
Villa 5th, yeah. And I'm not going to conclude my dark horse West Ham in there for it. But so I've got Manchester City, Arsenal, Liverpool, and Chelsea as your top 4.
Another Chelsea shout for top 4.
Villa in 5th, and let's say Tottenham beating Man United to that 6th spot.
So that's that Newcastle 8th then for you.
It's interesting.
So hard, isn't it? Yeah.
I think probably the top 8 or 9 he's probably set, isn't he? I suppose he is most years, but the order of it is a different matter. Yeah. You haven't asked me for the next bit yet. So
No. Go on, I'll do it now. Bottom 3 then. I'll start with yours.
In no particular order, I've gone for.
We'll do that when we do our Premier League 1 to 20.
Yeah,
no particular order.
I've gone for Southampton, Forest, and I've put Brentford in there.
Have you?
So clearly, I'm expecting the demise of Brentford quicker than you are.
Ipswich and Leicester both to stay up then in your one.
Ipswich is really fascinating for me because is he the new Messiah?
Yeah.
And even if he is that enough to keep a squad of kind of Ipswich's, I suppose, Premier League and experience? Is that enough to keep them in the Premier League? I think it might be, but we shall see.
Frankie, yours?
Well, I think, they've got Ed Sheeran there, so he can come down and play a few songs for them in the dressing room, get them inspired. So maybe that might be enough to add a few points.
Marginal gains.
I might actually do the reverse thing. Might become bottom.
I'm not his marginal gain to.
I was going to say, it sounds like a track, doesn't it? Yeah.
No, it could be. I have no idea.
Like it could be, doesn't it?
But I've gone with.
I wish I had made that joke. So I was thinking it as well.
Sorry,
I've gone Leicester to go, Southampton to go bottom, and Forest. I think it might just be a season too much for Forest.
I put a Google poll out for people to fill in their top 6 and bottom 3.
Did this one work?
Much more better than the other poll. The audience top 6 combined as averages: Arsenal to win the league, Man City 2nd, Villa 3rd, which, to be fair, I am tweeting this out to a Villa audience, but very optimistic. Liverpool 4th, Spurs 5th, and Newcastle 6th. And bottom 3 was Ipswich, Leicester, and Southampton. The obvious 3 to go down, I think. Those averages were worked out via this poll that I tweeted. And that is a wrap on our Aston Villa season preview. Matt, Frankie, John, thank you for joining me on this episode. Hopefully people at home have enjoyed watching or listening to this one. All of the predictions that we've done there at the end will be in the description as well, in the comments, where you can fill in your predictions as well. We'll come back and look at them at the end of the season.
In the description, you can update that. You can edit that throughout the season, can't you?
Yeah.
So I said Brentford were getting top 4.
So we'll come back to this at the end of the season and see how we all did. Gents, thanks for joining me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Hopefully you have as well. Thank you for watching or listening to this episode of Claret and Blue, and we'll see you on the next one.